New week, and joining me on Monday's run, I'm out with Andy.
Hello.
And we've picked golden hour for our run this evening. So what we've got on the menu is I think it's about 9.5 or 10 mile easy run. Andy's got a few pickups in there, so he's wanting to do a section 3 or 4 miles at about 7:30, so we'll see how that gets on. So Andy is also doing Valencia, and we're just having a little chat about what his training is going to look like. So he's got a little bit less time to train than me, a few more commitments, and he said that we've got probably 3 runs per week to try and maximise to get the most out of marathon training. So
First marathon.
He's done quite some long distance before, so done quite a few long trail runs, attempted a couple of ultras. You have done some ultras over marathon distance, haven't you?
I've got over it, but never finished it.
Yeah.
So that's the main thing, nutrition this time.
Yeah, so I think
Pacing.
what Andy was struggling with was sort of cramping towards the end, a bit of pacing and nutrition. So what we've been saying about with his training is to use those 3 runs per week to maximise the distance he can get. So they're probably going to be sort of 2 medium long runs and then a weekend long run. He's talking about doing a run a bit like tonight, like a 10 mile on a Monday. He's been talking about doing 2-hour runs on a Wednesday night, and then probably looking about another 90 minutes to 2 hours at the weekend, aren't you, Andy?
Yeah, mixing up flattened hills, rolling hills. Yeah, just trying to get that recovery.
Nice one. You are now joining me on my Wednesday recovery run. So quick check-in after last night's track session. So did a track session which went a bit better than last week. Still not quite where I want it, but we'll go over that a bit later. So the session did a 1 mile warm-up, probably a little bit short, could do with doing a little bit longer of a warm-up maybe. Then into a 1 mile tempo, and then did 4 lots of 1200s, followed by a quick 400 after. So again, it was a little bit like the previous week's session, was working the speed endurance both down towards the 400 meters and higher up towards the 1200 and the mile reps, which is 1600 meters. In terms of paces, it was a lot better than last week. So the mile I did in exactly 6 minutes, pretty much stopped as I crossed the line. And going into the 1200s, the pace was pretty consistent I was getting back just under 6 minute mile pace. So they were very similar to the pace that I did the 1 mile rep at. So for 1 lap shorter, I'd expect that I would hit that, but I did also have 4 of these coupled in with a few 400s. And then the 400s, they were around 80 seconds. I was finding myself going off probably a little bit too quick and then dying on the last sort of 100 to 150 meters there. So plenty to work on that front. Like I said at the start of the video, I was slightly worried on why I wasn't hitting the paces that perhaps I thought I should have been at these track interval sessions. So I've compared them to when I was doing track sessions and the times that I was hitting, and I think it is to do with the distance really. So these 2 track sessions I've done in the last 2 weeks, there's been around 8k, 5 miles worth of volume, whereas when I'm comparing myself to where I thought I was, those sessions were probably only 5 to 6k worth of volume. So adding that extra volume in is brought more of an endurance focus into it, and it's probably doing me more good as I work towards a marathon, in all honesty. So I will keep trusting this training, the increased volume, and I will look to probably extend that volume closer to the marathon. So I might look to increase this to 10k worth of effort, but in doing so I will have to maybe reduce the times that I'm expected to do within the reps. To get this endurance focus, I've got to sacrifice on the speed. So if we are looking at it, my goals for a marathon are to run quite comfortably at somewhere around 6:30 per mile for best part of 3 hours really. So trying to improve my top end speed lower than this 6-minute mile, that's still 30 seconds quicker than what I want to do over a marathon. So again, it's about getting that specific training tailored to the event that I want to achieve in. And there will also be a case of when I increase my mileage, if I'm stacking sort of 50, 60, 70 miles per week, that my aerobic fitness will just go off the charts really compared to what it is now at around 2 good weeks at 45 miles, and that will really make the difference. I will just be running the one short recovery run today to give my legs a bit of a rest, but tonight I will be doing some coaching. So I'm doing the track session, leading that for my club at South Derbyshire, and what we'll be doing is a bit of fitness testing. So we're doing something called the Cooper's test, which is a 12-minute continuous run, and from that you can use the distance that you completed in the Cooper test as a rough predictor of your VO2 max score. It's not entirely accurate, but it does give you a figure to base yourself on, and even if it doesn't predict your VO2 max, you can still base this as, well, I've managed to do 100 metres further from the last time I did it, so I am, in that sense, for my 12-minute tempo, getting quicker and getting fitter at that. I will also be treating myself to a sports massage tonight, so be freshening my legs up nicely between sessions and following my structure. Tomorrow morning I will have a tempo session. So talking a little bit about this last week, the tempo, I did a 4-mile tempo and I also did a race which was 5 miles. So my next step from here to progress this, I don't want to go straight into a 6-mile tempo, so I think that might be too much of a step up, but I'll go into 2 by 3 miles. So I'll do 2 by 3 mile effort with a bit of a jog recovery in between and look at hitting around that 6:30 mark, that marathon pace. It is now Thursday evening and I'm joining you from my tempo session, so on my familiar loop from last week. So the reason I'm joining you this evening rather than in the morning, I know I'd said previously if I get out in the morning, I woke up feeling a bit rough, not really had a great night's sleep to be honest, and decided to put it back to tonight, my session. I still got that flexibility to do it tonight as I was just doing my 1 run today, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. I don't feel 100% still, but yeah, just get a good session banked and see how we go. So the session is going to be a 2 by 3 mile tempo. So remember, I was increasing this from 4 miles to 5 miles, then my next intermediate step to get up to 6 miles is to split it into a 2 by 3 miles, and I'll have a bit of a jog recovery in between. So it's now time to get into the rep. My pace target is 6:30 for these reps. Let's see how we get on. So that's the first lot of 3 to 5 minutes between the sets. So in terms of paces for that one, a little bit disappointed because it averaged out about 6:35, but then thinking about it, I've got to take into account how I feel, my training load during the week, and to be honest, just getting out, doing the session, if it's 5 seconds slower, that's fine. It doesn't make too much difference tonight, so I'm just going to dust myself down in the recovery and then maybe go out a little bit slower, maybe like 6:40s in the next one. So that is the session done now, 2 by 3 miles. It's a good one that I've got ticked off. and finished that last 3 mile tempo. So I said before going out that I'd set off a little bit slower on the second lot because I think I went a little bit too quick for how I was feeling on the day in the first half. So I set off around 6:45, and I think that was a bit more sensible. I was still slowing down from there towards like high 6:40s by the end of the session, but I'm not going to get too downbeat by not hitting the 6:30s that I set out to achieve, because I've still banked a good quality session there, still worked hard. And to be honest, on that last lap when my pace was dropping, when I was coming into that final mile, it's very tempting doing a 1 mile loop past your house just to dive in and finish your session and cut it short. But I did stick out there. I've done that in the past and not felt good about it afterwards, so I did stick out there. I got that last one done just under 6:50, so pretty pleased with that one. And to be honest, I did feel like I'd sort of eased up a little bit into the end of a rep. It was the first mile that I was finding the most difficult when I was setting off, and as the sort of tempo went on, I was finding that I was easing up into it a little bit more. So if I'd had a bit more time for this session, probably a bit of a longer warm up and a few sort of drills and strides in there to get me prime ready for the session. It's now time to round up the rest of the week's running. So I did leave it. The last session that we did was a tempo on Thursday. That went pretty well. We've had my thoughts in the previous clip there. Then moved on to Friday morning. So Friday morning went for an easy hour and got around 7.5 miles in within the hour, and then decided to have a day off on Saturday. So I was looking at my mileage and I was on 36 miles going into the weekend and planning to do an 18-mile run with Robbie and Steve on the Sunday. So doing the maths, that would have been a 54-mile week. So I'd only done a sort of 45-mile week, then maybe a 48-mile week last week. So I didn't want to jump it up to a 60-mile week by just getting an easy run on Saturday. There was probably nothing really to gain from doing another easy run on Saturday when I had a long run, which was more important within my training. So did take that Saturday off and then went over to Sunday for the long run. I was actually pretty proud of this run, and Steve was too, because we were in a similar position that we'd not really ran over probably 13 or 14 miles distance in this marathon block. And as we were all working towards Valencia, it was really good to get that 18 miles ticked off, just doing it at a comfortable pace. So we thought that we'd probably be looking in the sort of 7:45s to 8-minute mile range, as it's the first time we've done that distance for a while. But we did actually get pulled along a little bit. So Robbie's used to running these steady long runs. He's been doing sort of upwards of 16, 18, maybe even 20 miles at around 6:50 pace recently. So that kind of dragged us along, that Robbie was going a bit quicker, and we did manage to get 7:30 per mile, which was really good going. That's not too far off marathon pace, that we're looking at about 30-40 seconds off marathon pace, and it did feel pretty comfortable. I didn't manage to get any clips from the run. Took my GoPro with me, but didn't take it out on the run because the rain was pretty torrential this morning on Sunday, so didn't really want to have it in my back pocket all the time of that run. The footage probably wouldn't have been very good anyway, so it was one of those runs where just wanted to get through it really. But it did go very quick with good company, and having the rain and cooler conditions probably helped. I was able to run without fuel, without water, although I was getting a little bit thirsty towards the end. But in terms of nutrition, I will be practicing this on the 20-mile runs and upwards. Overall, I was pretty pleased with this week to get in the 2 sessions again. Showing that consistency in the sessions, I think, is really paying off. Even if my times aren't warranting that, I did have a step up of the 2x3 miles in the tempo, and I'll look at either a 6 or a 7 mile tempo within the next week and try and hold that at 6:30s. I did get that long run, so I built my long run up to 18 miles now, which is a really good benchmark, especially sort of 2 weeks into marathon training. I can keep this pretty high, and those long runs are going to make the difference in that marathon training, coupled with the interval and tempo work, I reckon. So really good week 2. I'm happy with that. That's 54 miles in the bank. I can look to work towards sort of a 60-mile week next week, which probably would have been quite comfortable this week if I did run on the Saturday. So all in all, a great week and looking forward to week 3. So I'll see you in the next one.